Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and welcome to this video, which is in our Human Games series, and we'll be looking at Game 2 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi through Leela's brain, actually, again using the program Nibbler. What's the purpose of this video? First of all, to acquaint you with this tool, and hopefully get you enthusiastic about it and also using it for your own analysis, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. The other thing that I found interesting was simply trying to navigate through the evaluations of the different moves during the opening, and trying to understand what Magnus's team was doing and what the effect was. As we'll see that Magnus's team is often choosing the second or third or fourth best engine move, but simply one with a high chance of extracting a reciprocal micro blunder from the opponent, which will put the evaluation back in White's favour. It's a very clever approach. I think it's a very necessary approach, to create tension and excitement in the match. And I think that Magnus has been very successful so far in doing this. So, join me on a journey through Game 2 together with Leela and Nibbler. So let's have another little go at looking at a World Championship match through Leela's brain. So this is the position after move 7 of Game 2 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi. Magnus Carlsen is white and Jan Nepomniachtchi is black. So this is a pretty standard Catalan, and Jan played the move b5, which is pretty aggressive. And now, interesting to see, Magnus played the move 8 knight e5. And, interesting to speculate why he did this. Let's have a look to see what the engines are recommending. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off small, just 1,000 half moves, 1,000 nodes. And let's get Leela warmed up and see what happens. So there we are, 1,000 nodes, boom, just like that. Quite interesting. We're seeing that A4, that's by far the most interesting move for Leela. 56.1% expected score, so that's basically a slight advantage to white. And what you see, this very important value P, 58.96%. That is the probability, according to Leela, that this is the best move in the position. If we just move down, we can see Magnus's move now, 50.7% expected score, so about equal actually, and knight e5, probability that it's the best move, just 6.77. However, if you compare it to other moves below, you see 4.92 for knight c3, 4.35 for knight g5, so it's kind of likely that that this move will get, more attention than other moves anyway, because the initial policy value is not too bad. So, okay, Magnus plays knight e5. He chooses the second best move of Leela. But we've only had 1,000 nodes. Let's take it a little bit further, move it up to 100,000. That's starting to get a decent amount of analysis, and we're going to see what Leela makes of that. Now what you see first of all is that the gap increases really. I mean, A4, Leela really thinks that is the best move, and knight e5 sort of decreases somewhat, but it's still the second best move in the position, looks like. So it's still getting reasonable amount of attention, although if you have a look at what happens here, this n value, that's the first of all in percentage terms, the amount of attention that this move has got as a whole. You can see 97.52%. That's 97,500 nodes of the 100,000 in total. Although knight e5 is second, it's just got a measly 0.76, so just 765 nodes. So I mean, you can really see how it works with Leela, that if it decides that the top move is clearly better, and it has a good high initial policy value as well, this p value, then it's really going to pour all the attention on that and not pay so much attention to other moves. Well, let's see how that continues with if we go up to 1 million nodes. I'll start it off, and then at some stage I'll sort of speed it up in the recording. But you can see that 95 is getting a little bit more attention in terms of numbers, but still the percentages there, the n values here, are still astronomically onto 8A4, and relatively speaking, much lower on 95 and all the rest. I mean, there's some again, there's those sort of discrepancies where the moves aren't really ordered in terms of the actual evaluation value of the position. So, for example, there's 8 knight g5 is 36.8, but it's higher than bishop g5 here. And that's simply due to the fact that the initial policy value here was 4.35. And here it was just 1.68 for bishop g5. So simply Leela assumed that knight g5 was going to be better from the start, and that just sort of has an effect throughout Leela's calculation. That always has an effect in how much time it wants to spend on a move. That's why it's so crucial, really, for Leela to have a very good neural network, a very good evaluation function, because if it gets moves wrong, it's possible for it to have blind spots. So, okay, well, we're proceeding here nicely. I'll just wait for it to finish. Well, you can see that after mature reflection, Leela's decided that a4 is the best move, slight advantage to white, and that knight e5 is actually a slight advantage for black. So, actually, Magnus and Magnus's team are deciding to play a line that the engine assesses as slightly better for black. Why on earth would you do that? Well, that's to do with, I think, some knowledge of one of his seconds, and also Magnus's experiences in a related line as black. So, for example, Magnus actually played the move 7a6 in a game against Daniel Dubov, and Daniel Dubov is one of Magnus's seconds, and he continued rook d1, b5, knight e5, c6. You might recognize the structure from the game. And in actual fact, if you look through Dubov's games, there's a lot of games with this sort of structure, this sort of semi-Slav structure on the queen side, pawn c6, b5, c4, and the king side, bishop fianchettoed. Magnus won a game, but also lost a game, and had a pretty rough time with black in these variations. So I think he also obviously had a good feeling about how difficult these positions could be for black. And well, simply then the decision to after b5 to go for knight e5 against a human opponent, and then get into this sort of structure: c6, a4. Knight d5, knight c3. I mean, that's quite easily made. And of course, even though the engine says that it's slightly worse for you, well, you can still use the engine to find all sorts of interesting resources for you. Now, this move knight c3 is again a very interesting one. I mean, let's have a look to see what Leela thinks is the best move here. So, what are we going to do? I think we'll go for something like 10,000 nodes, and we'll go. Well, 10,000 nodes, and what you see that the move that Magnus played, which was knight c3, is only the third best in the list in terms of evaluation, is actually not very good at all. Just 39.8%. Leela prefers a takes b5 and b3 as well. In terms of possibilities. Why would you choose then knight c3 instead of a takes b5? Well, a takes b5, it's a very forcing line. C takes b5, knight c3, f6. Yeah, I mean, it's a very forcing line, and yeah, I mean, it looks really to me as if it's going to peter out into something that's perfectly fine for black. A move like knight c3, really keeps the tension in the position, and of course fits in very well with the structures that both Magnus's second Daniel Dubov and Magnus himself knows well. So once again you see Magnus's team sort of taking a little gamble there and saying, okay, well, we're not going to play the necessarily the top engine move. We're going to go for something that keeps the position alive. And then, of course, you're going to use the engine to start finding some great variations. So, well, this picture does change a little bit when you leave the engine to run a little bit more. But let's just have a little focus on knight c3, f6, knight f3, and now this crucial moment. What is black going to play here? Let's go again for 10,000 nodes. So Leela considers that black actually has really only one good possibility here, which is b4. The move that Jan Nepomniachtchi played, queen d7, actually puts the position to a little bit better for white, just 48.7% expected score for black. So, from that point of view, you can say, well, this Team Magnus Gambit didn't work out badly at all. Complicated position. The first step that Jan takes is like a micro blunder, putting the evaluation back on white's side. Why would black possibly have avoided the move b4? Well, I mean, after b4, knight e4, bishop a6, black's really taking a lot of risks here. I mean, b4 is very active, but it really weakens the black queen side. And especially when you carry on with a move like knight c5, bishop c5, and then d takes c5. Black's had to give up the two bishops, and white's threatening to play the move e2 to e4, attacking the knight on d5. I mean, there's a lot for black to consider and to evaluate. And if you get it wrong, then you've made so many weaknesses to your queenside structure, you could just be losing completely. So from that point of view, I mean, I thoroughly understand a move like queen d7, which is much more human-oriented and a much more humanly comprehensible position, and keeps the queenside structure solid. But in actual fact, if you're looking at it in terms of did the gamble work out, then certainly it did. Now, just a word of warning about what I'm doing here. Obviously, I'm not looking too deeply with Leela, just to speed things up a little bit. But do remember that results can change significantly the deeper you look. So, and that's a very good tip in general, whether you're running Stockfish or Leela. You've got to make sure that your engine runs for long enough in order to find a good, stable evaluation of a position. So, yeah, queen d7 was played by Jan Nepomniachtchi, e4, knight b4, queen e2. And now there was a very interesting moment. I mean, actually, this move, knight d3, this was the move played by Jan Nepomniachtchi, and it was, Leela's initial idea. But now that we're in this position, let's have a little look to see what Leela thinks. Do you know what? I'm going to put it on 100,000 now, and we're going to go. So, yeah, I mean, what you're seeing is that we've got the move knight d3. That's got a p-value of 22.18%. So, very high chance it's the best move. But actually, knight a6 is slightly higher. P is 26.17. So that's why it's getting, more of the attention. It's getting 63.17% of the nodes. And knight d3 is getting 29.43%. That's not too bad. That's not too bad, but still. But why is knight 8a6 thought to be better than knight d3? Well, it's actually very much linked to what Leela thinks the reaction will be to knight d3, because after knight d3. Black, I thought this was an excellent move. Black's threatening b4 and bishop a6. Now, I know I said about weakening your queen side, but still, with a huge Kasparov octopus knight on d3, playing b4 and bishop a6 seems very tempting. And this knight on c3 has got nowhere to go. So Leela likes the move e5, just freeing the square on e4 for the knight. And what Leela really wanted to do was to play the move f5, which stops knight e4 and sort of reiterates that threat of b4. The only problem here is that you play a takes b5. And, well, c takes b5 leaves the h1, a8 diagonal a little bit open. So black's main idea is to go bishop b7. If b takes c6, knight takes c6. This is pretty good for black. I mean, this d4 pawn is under attack. Black's completely developed. But what white does, white can play the lovely idea knight e1. And after c takes b5, plays the move d5. Yeah, I mean, black takes on c1, rook takes c1, and e takes d5 is met by e6, and we're going to play rook d1, line up on the d pawn, and going to have a lot of compensation for the sacrificed pawns. Put Leela on this position, and Leela thinks that white is better. So, I mean, the big problem there is that black wants to restrict the movement of the white knight on c3. And that means meeting e5 with f5, but there's a slight problem with a d4, d5 break. So you might sort of understand now why knight 8, a6 is preferred, because what you're doing, you're keeping your knight on b4 here. So if I say, okay, I'm still going to play e5 as white, let's have a look what Leela says, f5. Exactly, and what it wants to do, it wants to, it's going to play f5, take control of e4, and it's keeping its knight on b4, supporting d5 and making sure that the d5 break is harder to achieve. So, yeah, I mean, this was quite an interesting, subtle point, and, you know, you only sort of realise it afterwards once you see what Magnus did, and also once you look at what Leela said. But it was an absolutely, you know, fascinating game, many interesting moments there to look at. But I think, you know, what I wanted to show was, first of all, you know, give another little demonstration of the nibbler tool just to encourage you all to really start using it. But secondly, also to show, you know, just exactly what the Team Magnus was doing, you know, picking out slightly worse lines. But then you're seeing straight away that with the natural human reactions of the opponent, you know, the evaluation is being nudged up again, you know, towards White's favour. And here, in actual fact, I think Team Magnus was exploiting, you know, a bit of knowledge specific to them. One of their team members who has great fantasy and imagination in these type of structures, with semi-Slav structure and a fianchettoed bishop, and also Magnus's personal experiences of facing his second in combat and well, losing some games as well. So, yeah, I mean, I hope this makes it interesting, also gives some idea about, you know, what the teams are doing and how they're using computer preparation. It's, I mean, sometimes, you know, draws are made and you don't really get an idea of what's behind it and what, you know, the huge work process and thought process and cleverness that's gone behind it. So, yeah, hope this sort of gives a little inkling of that. Alright, thanks very much for watching the video. If you liked it, why not give me a like or subscribe to the channel, and also take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which is, well, it's got lots of stuff like this. A few less numbers, a lot more chess diagrams, but yeah, you know, the spirit is the same. So if you enjoyed this, I'm sure you'll enjoy the book as well. But anyway, you know, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.